Hi everyone, and welcome to a More for Apps presentation focused on project management in Oracle ERP Cloud Fusion. I'm Andrew Gooch, and I'll be leading the discussion today. Just a little on me, I'm part of the commercials team here at More for Apps, based in the UK, and my primary focus is explaining to customers what we have to offer and helping with the adoption of any of our solutions they might want to implement. My background is technical. I've worked in various dev and DBA roles within the Oracle space for the last couple of decades, going back to 11i days, then R12, and obviously now Cloud Fusion. Well, recently I've been involved more on the functional side, so I've got a decent exposure to a lot of the problems you might be facing in your implementations. So this is what we'll be covering today. I'll introduce More for Apps first up, explain who we are, and then I'll briefly discuss the challenges of data entry and Cloud Fusion project management. We'll look at the forms, and then we'll look at alternatives provided by Oracle. And after that, we'll look at the More for Apps solutions in this area, with a few short demo videos to paint the picture for you all. So let's start with More for Apps. Who are we, and why would you want to listen to what we have to say? Well, the company was formed over 2 decades ago to address limitations with data entry performances in the Oracle ERP. That was 11i at the time, and later became eBusiness Suite. And we provide a range of tools in that space under the EBS Toolbox banner. And our experience in that market has helped our tools become the benchmark for spreadsheet-based loading into Oracle. Now with Cloud Fusion, we have a new suite of products under the ERP Cloud Toolbox banner. And that's what we'll be talking about later today. And we'll be looking at the projects module in detail, which supports a wide variety of data entry requirements within project management. But before we look at any of that, let's talk in more general terms about the challenges we face in this area. The intention today is to look at Oracle project management, and in particular the data entry mechanisms there, and to get an understanding of what shortcomings we might expect to be faced with and what methods are available to get around them. Oracle's ERP Cloud Fusion application is a rather fresh approach to managing this data area when compared to its previous EBS functionality, and there's a lot to like about what we see there. So let's begin by looking at the Oracle project data entry forms in Cloud Fusion. So I know this audience will recognize what we're seeing here. The project structure is laid out pretty clearly, and you can drill into the top task to reveal the detail underneath. And there are various control options at the top here. You can create one subtask or many at a time. So this is the screen for entering the multiple tasks. It's a bit of a struggle putting in the right dates here, as the dates for the top task are obscured when you're in this little form, but I guess that's okay if you're familiar with your project detail. And for the other project details, there are controls to manage them too. Mostly you click around up here. So here we're adding some task resources. That's a little bit finicky, but it works, I guess. It's a shame in the top screen we can't see that these resources exist or otherwise. So we have to click in to see what's there or what's missing. But once they're selected, we can record the details against them. But it's all a little bit one after the other. And there are some inconsistencies here. For transaction controls, we don't look in the actions drop down, but click on this icon. And then there's another button to click to actually add something in. You get the picture. Like I said, I'm guessing this audience is pretty familiar with all that. It's a set of typical Cloud Fusion forms, high on functionality, with a good sense of overall power and control. But like a lot of these cloud user interfaces, the power afforded by this drill-in approach comes at a cost. Number one, there's a lot of user action and steps needed to complete the data entry. Each time a user wants to add a layer of detail, it's a different set of screens and a unique navigation path. And there can be a lot of clicking and scrolling to the pages required to locate the elements we need to record the details against. Number two is a limited degree of overall visibility. I mentioned it earlier when we looked at the screenshots. Unless I've drilled into a level of detail, I can't necessarily see whether I have anything there. So there's an extra level of navigation required just to check we've recorded everything, resources, controls, team members, and so on. And what we're opening ourselves up to here, I guess, is a bit of risk. Data entry errors and partially completed project definitions. And look, there's always an element of human error in recording data, but there are riskier approaches and less risky ones, and these entry forms fall on the riskier side. Number three really comes tied together with number one. How fast can we realistically expect to record complex projects using this mechanism? Most implementations I've had exposure to in cloud are limited in their performance speed. So every click, every search, every subform eats into your data entry time. And that's before we consider entering the data values themselves. Cell-by-cell data entry is slow by its very nature. And I think everyone here recognizes this. Most organizations are aware of these issues, and there's a balance that needs to be found around what we can live with in terms of data entry timescales and what we can't. For low volumes of non-complex projects, this method is probably okay. But when those volumes start to rise, or the depth or complexity of the task structure increases, we'll start to have problems. And where it's judged the time cost of performance-based entry is going to be too much, the choice really falls between one of three options. And we need to judge best which approach will be the most appropriate for our business needs. I won't speak too long about this one. The benefits and pitfalls will be familiar to most of us. Tailored in-house solutions offer immense potential for best fit solutions to data entry bottlenecks, and you can focus exactly on your business processes and requirements, but there are considerable downsides too, and I'll enumerate them quickly here just to emphasize that. How deep are your pockets? What's the limit to cost effectiveness? Do you have the right talent at your organization to come up with the best solution? When will you be able to realistically expect to be able to use the end product? How much effort will it take to keep it working? Look, you'll essentially be reinventing the wheel with any solution you come up with in-house. And is that the best use of your valuable talent and resources? Most companies without a critical and urgent need for bespoke solutions would normally be expected to rule them out, which leaves Oracle solutions as the other main option. In projects, that's ADFDI, FBDI, and potentially VBCS. I'll put VBCS to one side just now, as that's essentially a bespoke development path in its own right. You need to build a development project around that and implement, deploy, and maintain that. More or less the same as an in-house solution. So we'll just put that aside and talk first about ADFDI. ADFDI is actually limited in projects. You can't do everything. There's costs. This screenshot is the asset assignment sheet. There's no project's foundation definition, so you can't define your tasks and key members and so on. But what we got, there's some validation in there, drop downs in the cells. That's quite nice. It's not there for each field though. KFF validation is a bit clunky. If we try to get a validated value, we have to double click on the cell, wait for the server response, click on the search, select the value, click OK, repeat, so on. 6 clicks, I think it is. And if there's any errors on any row, you have to correct those before you can even bring up the validation form. So it's a pretty distracting workflow. There are also separate templates for each task. So the assets one is separate from the cost one. And actually the cost capturing is broken up into 5 completely different worksheets depending on your cost type. Generally in ADFDI, the templates are create only. So you kind of, even if you can live with the proliferation of files, you can't maintain your whole project lifecycle here. Because you can't do your whole project setup with ADFDI, it's a bit limited in its usefulness. Sheets for niche tasks actually add a training overhead, but you still need to rely on the performance of most of your work. So for that reason, most organizations aren't using it. FBDI is the one we see deployed the most. This one offers the most functional support. Here's a list from the 22D website. And that's a pretty detailed level of support. So great, you say, solved, move on. Well, no. Despite what Oracle will tell you, FBDI is not the panacea which solves all of our data entry problems. I mean, just think about what we're looking at here. Each one of those bullet points is a file in its own right. It needs to be treated separately as a separate loading process. It needs to be populated, linked, processed, imported, and then the results checked and potentially fixed and reloaded. Most organizations who deploy it will tell you in no lack of detail their problems with it, not only from a usability point of view, but also from a process standpoint. The general consensus is that it's deployed because it's the least bad option, i.e. we use it because there's nothing better. Well, we'll talk about whether there's anything better in a few minutes, but first let's dive in a little into FBDI to see what all the fuss is about. So this is the project foundation template. You can see there are tabs at the bottom there for all the different data types. Headers on one tab, tasks on another, and so on. There are also individual files for many of the lower hierarchy elements. And if you've used it, you'll know there are some usability issues here. You can't see the whole hierarchy at once. You need to shift between tabs. And there's a lot of scope for user error if you miss bits out on one tab you're relying on in the other. The load process is pretty involved too. There are things to do in the sheet, CSV conversions to do, import jobs to run in the forms, error reports in PDF format that have to be deciphered, and then corrections put back into the worksheet. Here's the process flow actually. You can see there are a lot of steps to follow, and you'll be relying on some pretty significant expertise in your teams to drive it all forward. And of course, there's limited scope for updates. It's an import tool in the main. Look, a lot of projects are set up similarly, but there isn't much in the way of download options to populate existing project details for manipulation. You'll be forced to design BI reports and maintain them if you want to do that. It's all fairly ugly. Most of you will be aware of all of this, so I won't labor the point. So if the FBDI and ADFDI tools aren't to your liking, that leaves third-party solutions. And this is where More for Apps comes to the fore. Our ERP Cloud Toolbox projects module is designed to remove most of the limitations we've talked about here, and it's geared for end users rather than system experts. So you can leave it in the hands of your data owners and not need to involve dedicated IT resources. This is what it looks like. The product works as an Excel add-in, so you have dedicated controls for uploading and downloading in the worksheet. And it's designed to give you maximum visibility of your whole project at one time. So the whole of the data hierarchy is in one sheet. Headers, tasks, controls, all there together. And there's less scope to miss elements out for a given project because you can scroll across the project in the row and inspect everything as you'd expect. The download feature is worth emphasizing. The ability to directly source the sheet with Oracle data is of incalculable importance for any data maintenance activity you might want to perform. Edit forms allow you to inspect multiple elements for a data type at the same time, and the Oracle validation lists and so on are all there for you to ensure a clean data set. The upload process is driven from within Excel and involves the Oracle Public Web Services, generally the RESTful services. And there are no steps to perform from outside the worksheet. Even for interface routed uploads, you can kick off the import from within Excel and get the results directly into the sheet at the click of a button. You'll get feedback directly in row for your project uploads, and errors are clearly marked and generally indicate which field you need to correct. Your layouts are flexible. The tool uses the column headings in row 9 to identify the purpose of each column, and that means you're free to move columns around as you see fit to give the most agreeable working environment. Columns can also be removed if you're not using them without impacting the uploads. So you can design a worksheet that absolutely fits your process without any unnecessary guff. We'll see all of this in some demo videos shortly. But before that, I thought I'd put up this comment from a consultant whose client moved to the More for Apps ERP Cloud Toolbox projects module after struggling with FBDI for the beginning phase of their project's implementation. And looking at the projects module versus the FBDI templates, we can rank the two solutions. The main wins come from a more productive use of your project workforce's time. No reliance on extensive technical knowledge and a simpler process without any elaborate linking between data sets on separate worksheets. Error resolution in the same sheet as the uploads, less overhead trying to interpret which error belongs to which record and how to go about rectifying the situation. And more generally, the comparison of the More for Apps product with the other entry methods we discussed is quite revealing. The tools have been designed to meet the shortcomings in the Oracle approach head-on. And it's worth mentioning here that Oracle's quarterly patches are catered for automatically under the terms of your license. We're ahead of the curve with Oracle's release cycle, so you can be assured that when your upgrades happen, your More for Apps products will be working for you afterwards. And if we add new features or Oracle's web services change dramatically, we'll make a new version of the tool available to you. And deploying new versions is painless. There's no need to redo your install steps. Just swap out your old version of the MorphWraps Excel add-in with the new one. Projects module supports a number of areas of projects management, and this list is growing all the time. Like I said, the module harnesses the Oracle Public REST services. So once they're available and proven correct and reliable for a given data area, we'll be adding it in, and you will receive that new feature as part of your existing license, and there's no extra cost when new things become available. Now, we don't have enough time in the session today to look at every aspect of the module, so we've identified a few key wins that it provides to illustrate the advantages it delivers. So we'll start with project updates. Well, I say project updates, but we could be talking about updates in general here. FBDI and ADFDI don't provide much in the way of support for updates, but MorphWraps has tackled the whole project maintenance process head on, which obviously includes updates to projects already entered. And updating is a key focus. Now, Oracle project process rules and the available REST services functionality does come with some limitations, but in general, you can update what you need with the MorphWraps tool. And users can download existing project information, make modifications, and re-upload the changed project, all from within the spreadsheet with the minimum of fuss. So let's see what that looks like in action. With the projects module installed, there's a MorphWraps tab in the Excel ribbon with various controls. We can use them to log into Oracle. We just put in our login credentials at the prompt. So let's look at some updates to existing projects. This sheet has the projects columns we're interested in it, so we'll start by downloading some project data into the worksheet to make some changes. These two projects are based on the same template. We'll make changes to one of them. We can obviously type our change values directly into the cells. Of course, formulas are supported. And copy and paste. The projects module supports all the updates allowed by the Oracle Web Services. So we might update a classification code or add a couple of new classifications. Team member detail updates are supported. And there's defaults functionality we can use to seed values into the worksheet automatically, so we don't need to enter everything in by hand. At task level, the full array of Oracle supported updates are at our disposal. And we'll use the defaults row to update the task manager for all of the tasks here and change the template's generic task names and descriptions using copy and paste. We can update some task organizations, some date ranges. And the other details and flags can be updated too. Excel copy down makes that easy. And when we're ready, we upload the two changed projects. And there we go. Feedback in the sheet shows what's been updated. And if we download those two projects again, we can see what they look like now. The header changes are there. There's the classifications, the new team member details, and the tasks have our new values against them now too. You can't do it in FBDI or ADFDI, but with the projects module, it's pretty easy. And here's Rob at NCR again with his feedback. Next, we'll talk about budgets and horizontal planning. This is tied together with period-phased budgets, i.e. when you're allocating your revenue and costs across a calendar. The Oracle approach in FBDI doesn't cater for this that well. So a budget spread over 12 periods needs 12 rows for each task resource combination. And that leads to two main problems. Very large data collection files, and with the project and task row data needing to be replicated for each of those, that takes a lot of time to set up. And also a high risk of error. Visually scanning a vertical layout like that makes it very difficult to spot missing period values and ensure the completeness and integrity of your information. And MorphWraps takes that pain away with the horizontal approach. You can set up sheets for any number of periods with separate columns for each. So you can paste in the values easily and inspect them without effort. And there's no need for redundant replication of all that header and task resource info. So let's look at how that works now. You can build sheets to suit any budget type. For non-phased budgets, choose none as a calendar type. For period-phased budgets, choose a calendar and the settings you want. Here we want to set a budget over 6 periods with quantities and costs. And now we generate a new sheet with that layout. But we're not tied down to our layout. We can extend it by adding extra periods at any time, just by entering in the new period names manually. And likewise, we could remove unused ones too. To create the budget, put in the project and give it a name. As always, we can use the defaults row for any values we intend to use for each budget. We enter in our resource lines. We might do that in the form to gain access to Oracle and the list of values for the project. But mostly it's easier in the worksheet. Put in the plan line info. This one needs raw cost values. For the burden costs, you might use Excel features, formulas, and copyright help us there. For the other plan lines, we might copy and paste values from an external source. When we're ready, we just click Upload. It's easy to make new versions too. Let's download the budget. You can see there what's in Oracle. And we've got defaults in place, so we can just clear out the totals and put in the new version values. And then upload again. So let's see what we have now. We'll download all the budgets for the project. And this time it brings back 2 versions. You can't do this sort of horizontal planning in FBDI or ADFDI, but with the projects module, it's simple. The last area I wanted to highlight today is cost adjustments, the scenario where you need to revisit the project costings already entered. MorphReps is the only off-the-shelf solution right now that supports these kind of operations. And again, it's tied to the fact that the MorphReps tool allows you to download from Oracle, so there's no rekeying of the costing info at all. Download the costing transactions, make your transfers or adjustments, and send it all back to Oracle with the easiest of processes. So let's see what that looks like. This sheet has had a small batch downloaded in it, and we can use it to make adjustments. We can set the billable and capitalizable flags or reverse the transactions. And since the release of 22C, there's support for transfers too. Just put in the transfer details and upload directly. And downloading those transfers shows the 3 transactions in Oracle. The original expenditure record, the reversal, and the new transaction with the changed project details. You can't do it with FBDI or ADFDI, but with the projects module, that comes as standard. So we've seen a few key wins in the projects module that I think will add some value to your processes. And here's another comment from Rob at NCR. Another thing to emphasize, the earlier your organization can understand the options and pitfalls ahead, the better, especially if you plan to take advantage of the benefits of third-party software tools like what we have at MorphReps. We regularly hear that the internal discussions, the decision-making process about implementing external software solutions, and the length of the approval process to bring them in takes much longer than expected. And in the interim, you may fall back on FBDI or some underperforming solution. But to quote Yoda, once you start down the dark path, forever will it dominate your destiny. Old habits are hard to break, and change takes time. So simplifying processes up front with tools like the ones you've seen that are intuitive and easy to learn can reduce a lot of pain. And the benefits can be seen right across the business, from strategic advantages for your top decision makers, right through to increased productivity for those people on the ground doing the actual feeding in of data into Oracle. There are also collateral advantages to other teams, like your IT function, which will have a reduced workload as the data teams become more and more self-reliant. So we'll finish off with some ROI stats, again, kindly supplied by Rob at NCR. So here's a couple of scenarios he's described. First one, there was a need to add a DFF value. Using MorphReps, he updated the value across 9,000 projects within an hour. And manually, he estimates it would have taken one person more than 6 days to do that. Because he was able to take advantage of more fraps, he had this to say. Next up, during the go live, there were nearly 25,000 updates made to the projects and tasks. And those changes took less than 7 hours with the Cloud Toolbox module. And the manual estimate there was approximately 17 days of highly tedious and also error-prone work. And you can see how integral he felt the More for Apps product was to their solution. The ultimate key win is better business performance, reduced costs, more reliable data, better business insight and confidence. It's what we're all striving for. Obviously, we've spoken about the projects module today, and there's a lot of functionality there over and above what we've had time to showcase in this session. But the projects module is only one component of the suite. There's also procurement, product definition, and the finance module. And we'll be happy to share information on any of those that might be of interest to your business. But that brings me to the end of the session for today. Before I finish off, I'd like to say a big thank you to you all for attending, and I hope you found it informative and worthwhile. If you have any questions or would like to leave some feedback, here's my contact details again, and I'd be happy to receive your correspondence.